Have you ever wondered how a new world power can seemingly erupt out of nowhere, changing the course of history in just a few decades? That's exactly what happened in the 7th century, when the armies of Islam burst forth from the Arabian Peninsula. But to understand this explosion, we first need to understand the world they came from. Imagine a land without a king, without an empire, without a single unified identity. This was pre-Islamic Arabia. The most important law wasn't a national one. It was loyalty to your tribe. This concept, known as asabiya, meant everything. Your tribe was your protection, your family, your nation. This led to constant conflict trades, skirmishes, and blood feuds that could last for generations. Life was precarious, and alliances were constantly shifting. Religiously, the peninsula was a tapestry of different beliefs, but the center of it all was the city of Mecca. Here stood the Kaaba, a sacred cube-shaped building that housed hundreds of idols, each representing the god of a different tribe. Mecca was the ultimate pilgrimage site. Tribes from all over Arabia would travel there to worship, trade, and settle disputes. This made the city incredibly wealthy and powerful, especially for the Quraysh tribe, who were the custodians of the Kaaba and controlled the lucrative pilgrimage trade. In this divided, chaotic world, Arabia was sandwiched between two giants: the Byzantine Empire to the west and the Sassanid Persian Empire to the east. It was seen as a peripheral land, a backwater of warring tribes, not a threat to anyone. But in this very environment, a man named Muhammad, a member of the powerful Quraysh tribe, began to have profound spiritual experiences. Around the year 610, he started receiving what he declared were divine revelations. The message was radical and transformative. It called for the worship of one and only one, God Allah, in Arabic. This concept, known as Tawhid, was a direct challenge to the polytheism that defined Mecca's religious and economic life. But the message went beyond just theology. It proposed a revolutionary new social order. It called for the creation of a unified community, an ummah, where faith, not tribal bloodlines, would be the primary bond. It demanded social justice, caring for the poor, the orphans, and the widows. It laid down ethical rules for business and family life. This wasn't just a spiritual renewal. It was a blueprint for a whole new society. And for the powerful elites of Mecca, this was a threat. It threatened their religious authority, their economic dominance, and the entire social structure that kept them on top. Unsurprisingly, they reacted with hostility. Muhammad and his small band of early followers faced years of intense persecution, mockery, and economic boycotts. The situation in Mecca became untenable. But then, an invitation came. A delegation from the city of Yathrib, a city to the north, torn apart by its own internal tribal feuds, invited Muhammad to come and act as their arbitrator. In 622 CE, Muhammad and his followers made the journey from Mecca to Yathrib. This migration, known as the Hijra, is the single most important turning point in the story of Islam. It's so pivotal that the Islamic calendar begins with this event. Yathrib was renamed Medina, which means the city, or more fully, the city of the Prophet. And here, Muhammad's role transformed. He was no longer just a preacher facing persecution. He became a state builder, a leader of a new political entity. He established what is known as the Constitution of Medina. This was a groundbreaking social contract, a formal agreement between the different communities in the city. It declared that the Muslims, along with the Jewish and other pagan tribes of Medina, formed a single community, that ummah he had preached about in Mecca. It stipulated that all major disputes would be brought to Muhammad for judgment, establishing a central legal authority, and critically, it guaranteed collective security. An attack on one was an attack on all. For the first time, faith and a shared social contract, not just blood ties, were the foundation of a state. The first Islamic polity was born. From this secure base in Medina, the new Muslim community was able to defend itself. The Quraysh in Mecca, seeing the growing power of this new state, launched a series of attacks to try and crush it. But through a combination of strategic battles, clever diplomacy, and growing alliances with other tribes, the Muslim community not only survived, but thrived. Muhammad's influence spread like wildfire across the peninsula. The climax came in the year 630. With a massive, multi-tribal army of followers, Muhammad marched on Mecca itself. The city that had cast him out 8 years earlier now faced a formidable force. But instead of a bloody conquest, what happened next was a masterstroke of statesmanship. Muhammad offered a general amnesty to the people of Mecca. There were no mass reprisals, no quest for revenge. Faced with overwhelming force and a merciful leader, the city surrendered peacefully. Muhammad entered the Kaaba, the very heart of the old polytheistic system. He circled it, and then, one by one, he and his followers cleansed it of the hundreds of idols it contained. The building was rededicated to the worship of the one God, just as his message had called for 2 decades earlier. This act was profoundly symbolic. It was the ultimate spiritual victory, but it was also a demonstration of supreme political power. The old order was definitively over. In the final 2 years of his life, from 632 his death in 632, the transformation of Arabia was complete. Tribe after tribe from every corner of the peninsula sent delegations to Medina. They came to pledge their allegiance, accepting both the new faith and the political authority of the Prophet. The patchwork of warring tribes, a land defined by fragmentation and feuds for centuries, was now a single, unified state. So, why is this unification the absolute key to understanding what happened next? Because it created the engine for one of the most rapid and consequential expansions in human history. First, it created a powerful, unified army. The rival tribal militias, who used to fight each other, were now a single, cohesive military force, fighting under one banner with a shared, powerful motivation. Second, it provided a clear and compelling ideology. The mission to spread the message of God was a cause far greater than petty tribal interests or the desire for plunder. It gave them a purpose that transcended old rivalries. And finally, it created political stability. For the first time, the Arabian Peninsula was not just a collection of raiding parties, but a centralized, powerful state capable of organizing and deploying its resources on a massive scale. So when the armies of Islam marched out of Arabia in the years following the Prophet's death, they weren't just another tribal raid. They were the disciplined, organized military of a new superpower. They exploded onto a world stage where the 2 old empires, Byzantium and Persia, were exhausted from centuries of fighting each other. The result was a dramatic and permanent reshaping of the world map and the course of human history. The unification of Arabia wasn't just a local event. It was the spark that lit a fire that would spread across continents. Thanks for watching. If you found this historical deep dive interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.